My fiancé said. I need to date other men or the wedding is off. I replied. Wedding's off, then I saved the voicemail, snapped the lodge charge and forged addendum, saved her email to Kellen, packed, and canceled the venue and returned the ring as the brokerage compliance officer called. The voicemail played through my truck speakers in a thin, shaky loop. I need to date other men to know if you're the one, Myral said. Otherwise, the wedding is off. I gripped the steering wheel and felt my face go numb. I was parked under the old Samoa Bridge outside Eureka, California. Salt fog drifted across the bay and my work vest smelled like wet rope. The message timer kept counting down like it wanted me to decide fast. I'm 44 and I inspect bridge cables and anchor bolts for a living. I climb catwalks, read tension gauges, and mark rust spots with bright paint. If a cable is off, you fix it before the whole span starts to sag. That morning, I knew my own life was sagging. Myral and I were engaged 7 weeks from the wedding. We lived in a small house in Cutton with redwood trees brushing the fence. The place smelled like coffee grounds and pine cleaner. A ceramic bowl by the door held her keys, always facing north, like a tiny rule. She was 41 and worked as a real estate agent at a coastal brokerage. She talked about trust like it was a contract. People don't forgive mistakes, she used to say. I believed her because I didn't plan to make any. The voicemail was not the first warning. The week before, she had been quiet at dinner, tapping her ring against her glass. Then she said, calm as a weather report, I think I need more experiences before we lock this in. That night was confrontation one. I asked, what does that mean, Myral? She said, it means I need to date other men to be sure. I asked, while we're engaged, and she said, yes, or I can't marry you. Her tone was cold and tidy, like she had filed the thought in a folder. She added, it's not personal, it's clarity. Then she watched my face like she was waiting for me to beg. Here's advice number 1. When someone makes a demand that breaks your values, don't argue like you're negotiating a price. Say what you accept and what you don't. A clean no hurts less than a slow maybe. I didn't yell. I just said, okay. She blinked like she expected fireworks. Then she nodded once, satisfied, and went back to scrolling her phone. The next day, a charge hit our joint wedding card. It was a big one, and it landed like a stone in water. Harborview Lodge Suite Deposit, the alert said, with a total that matched our florist payment. That was the money proof, and it came first. We had agreed that card was for wedding bills only. I stared at the charge and pictured the seating chart I had been working on, the names I had carefully placed. A mini hook hit me hard. She wasn't asking for permission, she was already spending the future. When I got home, Myral was in the kitchen packaging favors into little boxes. She didn't look up. I said, why is there a sweet deposit on our wedding card? That was confrontation too. I pushed and said, tell me the truth right now. She flipped it fast and said, don't interrogate me, you're being controlling. Then she added, it's for the wedding weekend, don't be dramatic. I held up my phone and said, it's not the venue, it's a lodge. Myral's eyes went flat. It's a nice place, she said. I deserve a nice place, I asked. Are you using our wedding money to date other men? She smiled like I didn't get the joke and said, it's part of figuring things out. Her voice stayed smooth, but her words were sharp. That night I slept on the couch and stared at the ceiling fan wobble. The house smelled like pine cleaner, but it didn't feel clean anymore. At work, when I check the tension, I don't pretend the numbers are fine. I write them down and act. The next morning, Myral told me she was meeting a friend in Trinidad. She wore a new jacket and sprayed perfume in the hallway like she was going to an open house. Before she left, she said, don't blow up my phone, I'll talk when I'm ready. I didn't stop her. I watched her taillights disappear under the trees. Then I opened the paper wedding planner that sat on the counter, the one with sticky tabs and perfect handwriting. Inside, I found a calendar entry circled in thick ink. Harborview Lodge 7 p.m. KV, it said, with a little heart drawn beside it. The lodge wasn't in Trinidad. It was across the bay, tucked away near the marina. That was the location proof, and it came second. I took a photo of the page, then set the book back exactly how it was. Another mini hook slid into my chest. When someone hides the place, it's because they know the place is wrong. I went to the garage and opened the storage tote labeled wedding. Under ribbon spools and table numbers was an envelope from the venue. It wasn't sealed. It was just tucked in like it belonged there. Inside was a signed document. It was an addendum to our venue contract, dated 2 days earlier. It pushed our wedding date back 3 months and listed reason, personal exploration period, like it was a normal thing. My initials were on it, not my handwriting but my initials. And under contact for temporary scheduling, Myrle had listed a name I didn't recognize. Kellen Vos. The paper felt hot in my hands. I read it twice to make sure I wasn't dreaming. At work, I check the tension and I trust the gauge, not my hope. This document was a gauge and it was screaming. Kellen Vos was not a random name. I had heard Myrle mention him once like he was a big deal. A local developer who renovated old mills into luxury lofts, always in the paper, always smiling for cameras. I didn't go looking for him. I didn't need to. Myrle's laptop was open on the dining table and her email was still logged in. A subject line sat at the top of the inbox like a flare, tonight's plan and rules. That was the communication proof and it came third. The email was to Kellen and she wrote, "We have an arrangement until I decide." She added, "My fiancé will have to accept it if he wants the wedding." A second message was a forwarded thread to her friend group. "He said okay," she wrote, "so I'm doing it." Then a line that made my throat tighten. "He's steady. He won't leave." A mini hook hit me so hard I had to sit down. She was using my calm like a cage. Here is advice number 2. When you find proof, don't announce it in the moment. Save it, then leave. The truth stays stronger when you don't stir it with rage. I took photos of the addendum and the emails. I logged out and closed the laptop. Then I started packing. I didn't pack like a man in a movie. I packed like someone doing a job. Clothes into duffels, work boots into a crate, my inspection kit into my truck. I left the house neat. I didn't break anything. I didn't take anything that wasn't mine. By noon, I drove to a small rental room above a kayak repair shed in Arcata. The place smelled like resin and damp neoprene. The heater ticked and the upstairs floor creaked like it had opinions. Then I did what Myrle thought I couldn't do. I canceled the wedding. I called the venue first, then the caterer, then the band, then the florist. The venue manager asked, "Is this mutual?" I said, "No, but it's final." She went quiet and her voice turned careful. I emailed the addendum back to her and said, "This is not my signature." I attached a photo of my real initials from my license because I wanted it clean. Another mini hook rose in my mind. People who forge your consent don't deserve your patience. I drove to the jeweler and returned the ring. The clerk looked at me like he wanted to ask questions. I just said, "The wedding is canceled." He nodded like he understood more than he said. That night, Myrle called me while I was sitting on the edge of the rental bed. The screen flashed her name again and again. I let it ring twice, then I answered. Her voice was tight and high, like air forced through a small valve. "What did you do?" she demanded. I said, "Wedding's off. Enjoy," and I hung up. She called back right away. I didn't answer. I stared at the ceiling and felt the quiet settle into me like a blanket. Here is advice number 3. When someone tries to pull you back with panic, don't let their fear become your plan. Panic is not accountability, it is just noise. The next morning, my phone filled with messages. Myrle said she was sorry, then she said I was cruel, then she said we could set rules and start fresh. She also texted, "Kellen was just a test." That line made me laugh once, dry and sharp. I am not a product sample. I met an older attorney that evening, a man named Corwin Dax. He was 66 and calm like a closed door. We met at a late-night Pier Supply store where the lights buzzed and the floor smelled like bait and bleach. Corwin looked at the addendum and said, "That is a problem." He looked at the emails and said, "That is also a problem." Then he said, "Do not threaten her, just protect yourself." He helped me write one clean message. It said I was ending the engagement, canceling all joint wedding payments and requesting no contact except through email. Short, clear, done. Corwin also told me to send the forged addendum to Myrle's brokerage compliance officer because it involved a client name and her work email in the thread. Brokerages hate liability, he said. They also hate public mess. 2 days later, Myrle showed up at my rental in Arcata. Her makeup was perfect, but her hands shook. She stood on the walkway and said, "We need to talk like adults." I didn't let her inside. I stood in the doorway and kept my voice flat. "We already talked," I said. "You demanded to date other men or the wedding was off." Meyer's eyes narrowed. "I never said that," she snapped. She was already trying to rewrite the first sentence of the whole story. The brokerage compliance officer called me the next day. She didn't sound angry. She sounded tired. She asked for the addendum and any related emails. I sent them. I didn't add extra comments. I let the document speak. That week, Kellen Vos vanished from Meyer's world. I saw it in one short email she accidentally forwarded to me while she was spiraling. "I can't be involved," Kellen wrote. "This is bad optics. Please stop contacting me." That was his betrayal, and it fit him perfectly. He loved attention, but not consequences. He left her holding the mess like it was hot. Meyer tried to reverse everything fast. She called vendors, but they had my cancellation in writing. She called the venue, but the manager had the forged addendum on file now. And her own coworkers started asking questions, because people talk in small towns. The final confrontation happened at the venue office, in a small conference room that smelled like stale coffee and carpet shampoo. Corwin sat beside me, calm and still. Meyer sat across from us, chin high, eyes tight. The venue manager asked, "Did you both agree to the addendum?" Meyer started with deny. "Yes," she said. "He approved it. He's just mad now." Then Corwin slid my license copy and the signature comparison across the table. Meyer shifted and went to minimize. "It was just initials," she said. "It wasn't a big deal." We were stressed. Then she partially admitted. She sighed and said, "Fine, I filled it out because he wouldn't decide." She looked at me and added, "I needed time. I needed to be sure." Then came the emotional move. Meyer's voice broke and she said, "You're destroying my life because I wanted clarity." Tears spilled and her hands shook on the table. "My brokerage is reviewing me. People are calling me names." I didn't raise my voice. I said, "You made the wedding conditional on me accepting an arrangement." I paused and added, "You also forged my consent. That's not clarity, that's control." The venue manager ended the meeting with a stiff nod. The refund terms were set, and the contract was closed. Meyer stood up like she wanted to argue more, but the room had already decided. A month later, Meyer's local realtor association opened an ethics complaint tied to the forged document and the client communication. Her brokerage limited her access to certain listings while they reviewed her conduct. She posted vague quotes online about being misunderstood, but people in town knew what happened. I focused on my own life. I moved to Chico for a bigger contract inspecting highway overpasses. My new apartment smelled like fresh paint and laundry soap, and the neighbors kept to themselves. At work, I learned to check the tension before a cable fails. In life, I learned the same lesson. If someone needs other options to value you, you are already the backup. One evening, I ate on a rooftop taco spot in Chico, warm lights strung over the railing. A woman named Leora sat 2 tables away, reading notes for a community radio show. We started talking about music, then about work, then about quiet mornings. Leora was steady in a way that felt rare. She didn't test me, she didn't bargain, she just showed up. When I walked home that night, the air was soft and the street was calm. I looked up at the dark sky and felt my chest loosen. I didn't lose a wedding. I saved a life that was starting to crack. Thank you so much for watching the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe the channel.